The first time I actually saw it was on TV or something, and it both scared me and repulsed me at the same time.
Beyond the farthest reaches of the imagination, in what is known as the third age of Middle-earth, a tale is told. A tale of a day when a great shadow will fall across the earth with the phantoms of the night. It's the magnificent gift of J.R.R. Tolkien, the Lord of the Rings.
It's showtime!
Gandalf.
Ash Nag Gimbatu. One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all. And in the darkness, find them. You have watched 1978's animated adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, directed by Ralph Bakshi, who is probably best known for his very racy adult animated cartoons such as Fritz the Cat, Wizards, which was a fantasy feature that he did a few years after that. Yeah, he was responsible for Cool World. But of course, we're not talking about Cool World. We are talking about Lord of the Rings. You're a big fan of the Peter Jackson trilogy. It's one of your favorite sets of movies of all time. And I know that you had never seen this.
The reason that I never watched it as a kid, the first time I actually saw it, it was on TV or something, and it both scared me and repulsed me at the same time. At the end of it, I was pleasantly surprised that it was better than I thought it was going to be.
Now, for people who haven't seen this, it's a single movie, but it does not cover the entire story of The Lord of the Rings. It ends very abruptly, immediately at the end of the Battle of Helm's Deep. So this movie covers in 2 hours and 8 minutes what the Peter Jackson movies take like 6 hours to cover.
So I made sure to take in what you told me about the movie and the facts behind it and stuff. And I did a little research myself. So I made sure not to have any baggage going into this. And that I knew that the studio didn't give him money to do the second one.
Right. Yeah. They were never able to get funding. So he was never able to finish the story. And it was done with extensive rotoscoping techniques. In fact, most of this movie was actually filmed in live action and then rotoscoped.
You know, I know Disney's done that for a long time where they draw the cartoons over, the actors. But sometimes it would switch to what appeared to be some, I guess that's like true rotoscope.
It basically looks like a sort of a filter. Yeah, because sometimes you're getting actual hand-drawn animation, but then occasionally you get bits where it's like, it's clearly the actors.
It was a little bit off-putting. That and I really did my best not to constantly compare it to Peter Jackson's movie.
Sure.
Because and then I've eventually, after about 20 minutes, I stopped. Like I just wanted to just enjoy this. I thought they did a good job cramming as much as they could into such a short period of time.
Yeah, it definitely moves at breakneck pace.
Even the very beginning of the movie, you kick in right at Bilbo's birthday.
Yeah, in the middle of his speech.
And then he just, he puts the ring on and boom, all of a sudden Gandalf's walking in his front door telling him that he's got to give him the ring because he's leaving. And then he's coming back 17 years later to talk to Frodo. And I was like, this is all within like a minute and a half.
Yeah, it's a lot to pack into a movie. And for them to even have attempted to do it in 2 movies was a really ambitious goal. It's sort of a highlight reel of the first book and a half.
Yeah, like getting to see the good scenes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and especially because this picture has much greater fidelity to the books than Peter Jackson's movies.
Right.
They're much more true to what's on the page. I never have been fond of the way Peter Jackson handled Bree, for instance. Bree and the Prancing Pony. I mean, yeah, Butterbur is basically not even a character in the Peter Jackson one.
Quiet all! We have some visitors with us tonight, all the way from the Shire.
That was the first scene that I saw where it creeped me out in the Prancing Pony, that weird rotoscope version. And
yes,
I literally could tell one of the little people was Master Blaster.
Yes, yeah.
And you could just tell because I'm like, that's him. That's the actor.
Who run Bartertown?
Having the hobbits drawn as cartoons and then having the people in Bree, that did throw me off like a couple times.
Some of those choices are a little odd, but I do think that effect comes into its own later in the big battles.
Yeah,
because
the Helm's
it really
Deep
works.
Battle is great. I was really afraid they weren't gonna be able to pull it off because I'm like, it's the 70s. Like, how are they gonna make this seem so epic? And they did a really good job.
That whole sequence, starting from when the Fellowship breaks and the orcs are running with Merry and Pippin across, across the fields on their way to Isengard. I really love the way like that plays out. But I always loved that sequence in the book, and I really like the way it's handled.
And there was a lot of stuff Peter Jackson took from this.
I suspect that Peter Jackson drew way more influence from this than he did the actual book.
The Ringwraith scene with the hobbits when they're hiding in the tree, along the legend.
Yep.
That's literally the same.
Oh, it's practically shot for shot.
Yeah, so
the way he shot, the proud feet.
Yeah, it's like
right
exactly the same.
Bulges, horn blowers, and proud foot, proud feet.
Oh, I love the part where back in Rivendell when Bilbo sees the ring again, he gets that moment where he like wants to grab it, and Frodo's like ready to deck him. Do you feel that the characters felt more realistic to the book? Because the characters are much different than the movie.
I think the characterization is generally better here for most of the characters. The visual designs are a little spotty. I think the visual designs on the Hobbits are great. Legolas and Gimli both look great, though Gimli's a little on the tall side. The Ringwraiths look terrific.
I love the Ringwraiths. Anytime like there's like a limping sort of decrepit kind of creature.
They're so creepy here, and that's again much more true to the book. They're not in the beginning, they're not badasses. They're really off-putting and disturbing because they moan as if they're in pain. They have that like very unnatural gait to them as if they're like these hobbled old men. So I thought that was great. Though some of the designs, like Aragorn and Boromir in particular, like Boromir is a Viking for some reason.
At first I thought Boromir was Gimli.
And then Aragorn, though the voice acting and characterization is terrific on Aragorn, again, the visual design is a little odd. I think one of the running jokes that people have is like, Aragorn's a Native American for some reason.
While I look foul and feel fair, is that it?
Like Gimli, for instance. Gimli is taken seriously as a character here, which to me is really important to me because I love dwarves and I always loved Gimli's character. And as much as I like John Rhys Davies and as much as I love the Peter Jackson movies, Gimli is just comic relief in those movies. And that's always been one of my big pet peeves about those
that he's been reduced. He was like reduced in the movie to that.
Yeah, he's just a running gag, which I'm not a big fan of.
I will go with you. My cousin Balin led a company of dwarves there many years ago. There has been no word of them in all that time.
I also like the Legolas here more than I do Orlando Bloom's Legolas. He's sort of a strutting superhero, whereas here, Legolas feels a little more of like that. There's a more otherworldly feel to him, which is how elves in Tolkien's universe should feel. They should feel kind of distant and otherworldly and not quite one of us.
Sam, no resting can help your Mr. Frodo now. Only the hands of Elrond in Rivendell can do that. There are 5 black riders close behind us.
Treebeard, he didn't exist. That was hand-drawn, obviously.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not a great design.
But it was weird to me that the Balrog, why did they just draw him too? Like when that happened, I just broke out laughing because like, come on, man.
This Balrog to me looks like something out of like a Greek myth or something.
Right, yeah, he looks like, yeah, exactly.
Right.
I love Gandalf in it though. He's almost better than, and this is like, like
almost sacrilege to say.
Yeah, but I almost like him better than Ian.
He's much more imperious here. There's almost kind of a subtle menace, but not a malicious menace. Ian McKellen, who I adore and I love his Gandalf, but there's a softness to him that isn't present with this Gandalf.
However you manage it, do it soon, by your birthday at the latest. I should be back by then. I must go south now to consult with the wizard Aruman, the head of my order. Be careful, Frodo.
That's much more appropriate to book Gandalf.
What did you think about Sam? I'm just curious before I say what I think about Sam.
Oh, Sam, you simple-minded. Fell asleep.
Sam is one of the downsides. He's sort of played as mentally slow.
Me go, sir. Me go and see the elves. Oh, my. Oh, hooray!
Everything about him was off-putting, which is disappointing because he's one of my favorite characters.
He's a little too,
Oh, the ring is so heavy now, Sam.
The physicality of the acting is much bigger than you would normally get, and I'm assuming that they did that for the sake of the animation to breathe more life into it, because all the characters just have these very big and elaborate movements. When Gandalf reading the ring inscription in Bag End to Frodo, he's like going around the room with all these big movements. When Gandalf first shows up for a while, Frodo's like, "Oh, it's been so long."
He's like jumping up and down like this.
Greetings, Frodo.
Gandalf, it's really you. Oh, it's been so long.
Yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, which
a lot of facial expressions that were weird.
Oh, like when Frodo's like,
yeah, when he's like, I also noticed that they kept calling Saruman Aruman.
Only because Aruman is kind. How long since Aruman? It should have been his friend Aruman.
So what happened was they were worried that audiences were going to confuse Saruman and Sauron. And so partway through, they switched. They were already partway through the movie when they switched from one usage to the other. And that's why it's inconsistent. That's why sometimes it's, Aruman and sometimes it's Saruman.
That's a weird choice.
But I've always liked the voice actor for Gollum. Clearly set the standard for what Andy Serkis then went and did. And of course, Andy Serkis was remarkable. They drew their version of Gollum straight from here.
Where is it, my precious? Don't hurt us. Don't let them hurt us, precious. Cruel little hobbitses.
Because Gollum had been depicted on film with the Rankin and Bass Hobbit movie, which is a complete, he's basically like a frog creature in that.
Yeah, which I don't understand, but okay.
Very famously in the 60s, the Beatles tried to buy the rights to make the movie. John Lennon wanted to play Gollum.
Shut up. I'm
not kidding. I'm not.
Really?
Yes, really.
I would have guessed Led Zeppelin.
This is a movie that's been with me since childhood. After seeing it, I was just like blown away. Like, oh my God, I love this. I had a birthday party, the next year, year or so later. And my parents are like, oh, what do you want to do? You have all your friends over and all that. And I want to make everyone watch this. And that's exactly what happened.
I want to make everybody, you're all going to sit down and experience this.
Naturally, of course, I have it on Blu-ray. And of course, I have it on DVD as well. Of course, I have it on VHS, and I have it on VHS again. Plus, I have the soundtrack, and I have the score on vinyl. Coloring and activity books.
Oh yeah,
calendar from 1979. It's still in the original.
That's
box.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've always been very fond of this, and I recognize its flaws, and there's a lot of people that don't like it.
I think if you saw this and you had no idea what Lord of the Rings was, I could see why you would be put off by it.
I figured if you could get past the animation and so on, just by virtue of you being so familiar with the story from the Jackson movies, it would be like watching something very familiar, but in a different way.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I thought it was good. I know, like you said, a lot of people have their problems with it and stuff, and I understand and I agree that there's definitely some weirdness to it. The quickness of the story is a little bit hard to follow and stuff. I think it's an original. I think it's a cool version of that story. And it's the best that they could have done at that time.
I'm glad you finally got a chance to dig in.
I'm glad that you suggested it to me. That was a fun one.
I guess that means now it's my turn to operate.
That's right. So I'm hoping, because, this, as people know who watch, this is a suggestion of movies that you have not seen or at least have no real memory of seeing. I got a couple down, and I'm going to go with this one first, because I think that you've never seen it, and it's shocking as shit. For the first time ever, Die Hard.
Oh, I'm going to finally see Die Hard, huh?
We're finally, for the love of God, going to see one of the best Christmas movies ever made. So I hope everybody enjoyed watching and maybe watching the movie along with us, and if not, just watching us talk about a movie that maybe you've seen or haven't seen.
Go see it, by the way. See it.
Like and subscribe to our channel. Or you can check out our Patreon at Nerd Out With Me, where you'll get to see these videos a little bit earlier than the rest of the public and some extra bonus stuff and things like that. Hopefully you are now officially part of the movie club.
the movie club. So I've been Eric.
And I was Tig.
Bye.
Bye.